So good day everyone. For today's topic, we are going to discuss about the gender and agriculture. So first let's have a brief definition from what is gender and agriculture. So first, what is gender? So gender refers to the socially constructed roles and responsibilities of men and women in a given culture or location. So gender refers to how men, women, boys, or girls expresses themselves. So it is influenced by perceptions and expectations arising from cultural practices and religious factors. So for example, referring to someone who wears a dress as a female. But remember that gender attitudes and behaviors are learned and can be changed.
Good day. For the definition of agriculture, we have agriculture as derived from two Latin words which is ager and culture. Ager means field or soil or land, while culture means cultivation. And for here we can derive that agriculture is the cultivation of soil. However, agriculture doesn't only focus on the cultivation of soil, but also it include the fishery, the livestock, and forestry. And for additional definition, we have agriculture is the art and science of cultivating the soil, growing crops, and raising livestock. For the additional, we have the importance of agriculture in our society, as agriculture provides our daily needs such as food and raw material that use for the production of other products that also we use in our life.
So next is we will be discussing about what is the role of gender in agriculture. So gender influences which crops are grown, which animals are raised, and which technologies are used. So it influences how households earn a livelihood and manage risk, what children eat, and how they are cared for. So gender in agriculture, they are the one who is responsible for the betterment in progress. So women are responsible for the light farming or crops processing, while men are the responsible for heavy workload like livestock and heavy cropping. Because women are responsible for the light works, they don't have the knowledge when it comes to farming tools, machineries, and techniques. So in this scenario, we can say that there is a gender gap in agriculture, so which will be tackled later on. So in agriculture, we need to implement what we call the gender equality and the gender equity. So gender equality is the result of the absence of discrimination on the basis of a person's sex in opportunities and allocation of resources or benefits or in access to services. So this means that men and women should be treated equally and differently. So for example, men and women should be paid the same for doing the same work with the same number of time or hours. So differently because they should be treated with different methods and different medicine to provide equal health care. So next is the gender equity. So it is a condition in which women and men participate as equals, have equal access to resources and equal opportunities to exercise control. So in other words, gender equity is the fair treatment for both men and women according to their respective needs. So overall, gender equality and gender equity should be implemented in agriculture so that men and women would have equal knowledge and access farming tools and machineries, so that they are both concurrent with the agricultural revolution, or the what we call the gradual transformation of the traditional agricultural system.
As for the continuation for the discussion, we have the importance of gender equality and equity in agriculture. Through gender equity and equality, we can attain the sustainability in agriculture. And what is this sustainability in agriculture? It is the capability of agriculture sector or agent to produce, provide, and maintain the demand of society regarding their needs, especially food products. It includes food security, and if the food supply is sustainable or surpasses, we can reduce the poverty and hunger that many countries around the globe facing, including the Philippines. And this is possible through promoting gender equality and equity, because according to Eugenio and Chitno 2019, high level of inequality make it harder to increase the productivity and reduce the poverty and hunger. Furthermore, according to Schiavone et al. 2014, Harper et al. 2013, woman empowerment has direct impact on agriculture productivity and household food security. Meaning to say, women play fundamental role in agriculture sustainability and a prerequisite to achieving global food security. In additional, the Food and Agriculture Organization in 2011, women said that women produce over 50% of the world food and comprises 43% of the agriculture labor force, both globally and developing countries. Despite these good things about gender in agriculture, why poverty is still evident to many countries, especially to Africa, if according to Eugenio and Chitno, 16% of the employee women in Africa is working at agriculture. Well, here where the gender issue brought out. Example of gender issue in agriculture is lack of access of women to seedlings, technology, education, etc., which may discuss further in some slide or in this discussion.
What are the capabilities of women engaging agricultural works? So, gender is socially constructed relations between men and women. It is an organizing element of existing farming systems worldwide and a determining factor of ongoing agricultural restructuring. Women increasingly head rural households and are the chief economic providers for their families. Women's productivity is severely constrained by the fragmentation of their time, their dual and responsibilities, and their lack of access to essential inputs including knowledge. The largest proportion of rural women worldwide continues to face deteriorating health and work conditions, limited access to education, and control over natural resources, insecure employment, and low income.
How will the agriculture affect the state of all women workers? Women are majority of all farmers in Asia, although invisible because their work is unaccounted. Women's workday is longer than men's, and most have reached the limits of endurance in stretching their day. Women harbor specialized knowledge and represent a pool of high-skilled labor in many areas of agriculture and rural development, which men lack.
Gender issue in agriculture. How gender inequality manifested in agriculture. Here, we provided an example of gender inequality in agriculture. So first is land rights, second, productive resources, 3, unpaid work, and lastly, employment and decision making. The first example is land rights. Women are less likely than men to hold formal land rights, and their plants are often relatively small. Foreign investors in land tend to reinforce such inequality by dealing with those who do have formal rights to land. They also tend to cut off women's access to common lands for household needs. Second example is productive resources. Because of gender discrimination, women farmers less likely to have access to labor, saving, and innovative production inputs such as fertilizers and pesticides. Third example is unpaid work. Through gender division of labor, women farmers tend to have an unpaid work. They are also left out to the opportunities in the field of agriculture. And lastly, employment and decision making. Also because of the gender division of labor, women are expected to do only housework, so men are mostly in agriculture. In terms of decision making, everyone expects that men have this kind of talent. Based on the example provided, I believe that the majority of all women farmers have encountered gender inequality in agriculture.
As mathematics has taught us, every problem has a solution. So these are some solutions that can solve the problems and issues in gender and agriculture. Firstly is to adopt a gender equity approach. Contributing to gender equality ought to be taken into consideration a part of the social contract related to overseas investments in agriculture. A lot within the identical manner as popularity of existing land rights and networks participation at the moment are widely frequent as key ideas for honest and equitable investment. Secondly is engage women as partners in developing and implementing investment principles. From the outset, RIFs must work with women as key stakeholders in the outcome of the investment and include them in efforts to put into effect and monitor their impacts at every stage. These projects should be conceptualized as being implemented with as much as for women. Thirdly is account for local gender norms. Gender inequalities vary across and within regions and communities, with implications for the outcome of RIFs for women. To mitigate any negative unintended consequences, implementation strategies should be developed with local women and researchers familiar with the cultural context regarding gender norms. In addition to that, there are some recommendations for the investors for us to solve those issues in gender and agriculture. Firstly is to ensure female participation in community consultations, equal to men if possible, and any other stakeholder groups with which you engage. Conduct additional women-only consultations. Secondly is to ensure participation of women in local farmer or employee training programs. Do not assume that the knowledge will be passed from participant men to non-participant women. Thirdly is to monitor gender impacts on an ongoing basis. Adopt business models and plans as required to be more inclusive and gender sensitive, and report on progress annually. Lastly, there are some recommendations for host governments to address those issues or problems. Number one is to prioritize inclusive and gender transformative outcomes in agricultural development strategies. Secondly is to request a gender statement from prospective investors, which should include an explanation of how the project will generate opportunities for women. Thirdly is to gather gender disaggregated data before, during, and after the implementation of the investment project. Include local women in the research process. And lastly, hold investors accountable for adherence to gender commitments made. So those are just some of the solutions that we can do for us to address or solve those problems and issues in gender and agriculture. So that's it. Thank you very much.